And we're live. Jazmyne McBride.
It's me.
What's up? How's it going?
Pretty good.
So you are our gymnastics coach.
Yeah, it's been a lot more fun than I kind of thought it would be. Not really. I kind of figured that it would be awesome, but it's way more awesome than I imagined it would be. So.
How'd you get into gymnastics?
I started gymnastics when I was like 5.
Yeah.
So kind of like the prime age with the kids that we have in our program now. But the only difference was I was at a hardcore gym. I started at GMS in Manassas, Virginia. And it's so funny because I don't remember a lot of things from my childhood, but I remember my very first day of gymnastics. Like, my parents took me to this gym, and I did this solo session with the owner of the gym, and they were basically evaluating me to see where I should be. And I remember she was like, okay, we're going to do a back handspring. I'm 5. She's like, so you're just going to turn around, sit, swing, and jump back and do a back handspring. And I did it. And I just did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And that was like no previous experience?
No experience. And
wow.
She was like, so gymnastics, not a lot of people know, it's levels 1 through 10. I jumped right into level 4 at 5. And then... yeah, I was at that hardcore gym, and then we moved around a lot, but I was working out like 20, 30 hours a week.
Yeah, so tell me about this. I've heard, like, I grew up swimming, and so like my age group would probably be, I mean, it was definitely every day, and like Saturdays and stuff, and Sundays when we did meets, but it would be probably a 2-hour practice every day. So what's it look like for an age group gymnast growing up?
So we... oh my gosh, when I think about it, it's really crazy. We worked out, we had 4-hour practices. Sometimes they were 5.
And this is like when you're like 5, 6,
well,
7?
when I was 5, I was probably working out. I had 2 4-hour practices, so 8 hours a week.
Okay.
And then as I got older, I started working out. I probably had like 5 practices a week. 4 hours each day.
Wow.
During the summer,
the standard gymnastics practice is 4 hours. What do you do? Walk me through that.
Yeah, the beginning of a practice is always stretch, warm up, conditioning. And then they usually have like an outline for what events you're going to do. So we might do vault, bars, beam, floor. We spend a designated amount of time at each event. Sometimes there's a break in between. It just depends on the gym. But then the end of practice ends the same. Stretch, like a cool down, and conditioning.
So you warm up, stretch, conditioning, like the bookends of the practice, and then in the middle you're doing like your event specific stuff.
Yep, exactly.
Wow.
And so most times you're practicing your routine or certain skills that are weak that you need to compete. And so if we're spending an hour on bars and I know my dismount is awful, then I'll spend an hour working on my dismount or doing drills to help better my dismount. Or if I'm just having a really awful dismount day, then I'll just work on something else. Yeah. And then
So when you're younger, the practice is still 4 hours. You're just doing fewer days per week.
Yeah, and so sometimes it might be 3. Usually, like the average, I would say is like 2.5 to 4 hours. It really just depends on the gym. I mean. Right. I'm coaching right now part-time at a gym in Woodbridge, and these girls who were my age and level, they're working out like twice a week for 2.5 hours. And it's funny because the coach is like, I don't understand why my girls don't win. And I'm just like scratching my head, and I'm like, well, she's like, my girls never take home first place. And I'm just like, I always took home first place. Yeah. And that was because I was working out so much.
Yeah. And then when you were, so you remember your first gymnastic experience, like you were saying you were 5 doing a back handspring. So like, do you remember like going to practice when you were younger? Do you remember like enjoying it or not enjoying it, or like what was your experience with that like growing up?
Yeah, it always came in waves. Like I would have months when practice was going really well, and I was always looking forward to going and working out. And then there would come, like, a good month or 2 when I would ask my parents to skip practice. Yeah. Or I just I would go to practice, and we got kicked out of practice. And so I would go to practice, and I would purposely do awful. So I would get kicked out of practice so I could go home.
Like you would behave, or you would like perform badly?
I would perform badly.
And they'd kick you out for performing badly?
Yeah.
Really?
Like, yeah, I remember in my peak years, like I'll never forget this either. I was training this skill called a cow hop. And basically, you're on the bar, and you push the bar away, but you're in a handstand. You push the bar away, and you switch your hands from here to here. Like while going into a handstand. And so I was terrified to do it because if you miss your hands, you fall right down on your face. Like there's no other way to fall out of that skill. It's on your face. And I remember I was terrified to do it, and I got kicked out of practice because I wouldn't do it.
Wow.
And so like it would be kind of like that if I didn't want to be at practice, then I wouldn't do a skill, or I would pretend to be afraid to do something, or my coach would be like, straighten your legs, and I just never would do it. And my coach would be like, you know what, I'm tired of seeing you, get out.
Wow.
Yeah, and so...
Yeah, because you sort of hear like the Russian gymnast, or the Romanian, and like it's that strict. It's like that approach to training. It's like...
But, I always tell people, I don't think that I would be... as disciplined as I am now if I didn't go to those hardcore gyms. Like
totally.
I don't know. I mean, even as an adult now, I always think, I'm like, where would I learn how to like push through things or challenge myself or just like be really persistent or any of those things? I'm just like, I don't know how I would have learned those things without gymnastics. Yeah.
Do you feel like you learn like those persistent skills, like that discipline? Do you think you learn that like like through practice, or do you think it's sort of like through the competition component of things? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, is it just the daily grind of practice and just showing up every single day and just having the discipline to focus for 4 hours, 5 days a week?
Yeah.
Or do you think that it was sort of like you grind through the practice, but then having like the discipline and learning in the moment of performance, or a combination of
I think it's
both?
Definitely a combination of both, because there would be times when I'm working out and I'm doing all these things. I'm going to practice every day and I'm on time, and I'm, we used to have all these cheaters in practice who would cheat conditioning, and I never did that. I was always like very focused at practice because I knew we had a competition this weekend and I wanted to win. And so I think it's a combination of, my discipline in practice, my discipline in a competition, and then seeing the reward at the end.
Yeah.
And so like, I think all of that stuff comes in. It all comes together. I don't know, it's kind
like
of
you sort of see the hard work, but then you see the result, and it's super tangible.
Yeah.
Where a lot of times as an adult, it's like you do a lot of hard work and maybe you don't see that result. Like there's no medal at the end of it. Or there's no like judgment. Like there's no like, this is the competition and I either failed or I won. Like sometimes as an adult, it's like all this hard work, and then it's like...
It's so crazy because just like talking about it, I get really emotional because like I was like, gymnastics was like everything.
Yeah.
And so I just remember like, I can't believe like how much I worked out and, all the meets that I went to, and I always won. Like, I have to bring in my medals and like let you like take a picture or something because it's unreal.
That's awesome.
It's unreal.
Yeah. So you get emotional because you miss it, because you loved it.
And I think also like, I don't have anything to train for right now, know? So I think if I were to find something to train for, I would be gymnastics mode. Like, it's funny because when I started working out at the gym, I was like, I want to train for the games. I want to train for CrossFit Games because I know I have that discipline, and I know I could be focused, and I'm so focused and so disciplined. I think I could like actually win,
Yeah.
And
I mean,
like a top contender.
For sure. And I mean, you look at the top female contenders, like almost all of them have really high level gymnastics backgrounds. Because I think the skills that you develop through gymnastics are the hardest skills for women to develop if they're not doing 5 hours, 4 hour practices a day. I mean, just like your upper body strength and your ability to do handstands and stuff like that is really, really difficult to develop and takes a lot of time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I always say, handstands in particular, I'm like, I really hope I'm like 40 and kids are like, you used to be a gymnast, can you do a backflip? And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever, and I just do it.
Yeah.
Same thing with handstands, like just pop out a handstand anywhere when I'm 40. That'd be awesome.
So you sort of So walk me through. So you were competing at a high level in gymnastics, like all through your childhood, and then all the way through, like basically through the end of high school.
Yeah. So high school, I feel like it's so easy for athletes to steer away from passion. Like, you get to high school and they have cheerleading and basketball and they have games and,
there's a lot of distractions.
Yeah, tons.
And your friends, like sometimes your friends are like, well, why don't you come hang out? And you're like, no, I've got practice in the morning.
Yeah.
Like this is my
priority.
priority.
And so in high school, I feel like I got sucked into that because I wanted to have friends and I wanted to like go to things at school. And so I started feeling like I was spending so much time at the gym and I didn't have any friends.
Yeah.
And so
were most of your friends like in swimming, for example, all of my friends were swimmers?
No,
it was wow.
So the only friends I had were the girls who went to the same gym as me.
Yeah.
And none of those girls went to my high school.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
None
I
of those
see.
girls. And
That's
so
tough.
so I would go to school and I was so weird in high school. I'm not kidding.
Still are.
But like I can count on one hand how many actual friends I had in high school.
Yeah.
And I could go through a whole high school day and say not one word.
Right.
So, but then I go to practice, I get kicked out of practice for talking too much. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Because you have all that like built up like social energy.
And I know these people and we actually have things in common, we spend 16 to 25 hours in the gym a week, and in high school and we can all relate on that level, So in high school, I felt like I wanted things that I didn't have. And so I was like, I'm going to cheer. And so I'd never cheered before. I tried out for the cheer team. Obviously, I made it because I can tumble.
Yeah.
And I'm small, so I was a top girl. I was a flyer. And so I started cheering, and I really liked going to like football games and basketball games. And I started thinking this was more fun than gymnastics.
Yeah.
And there was one year, my junior year in particular, my dad was like, you got to pick one. You can't do both. And I was like, I'm going to cheer this year. And so I cheered, and I didn't do gymnastics, and I never went back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's kind of hard to go from something that's so disciplined and so structured and so really like hard, like it's a grind. Mm-hmm. It's hard to like leave that and then like come back to it, like that's got to be one of the hardest.
And cheer was just so different because we had practice twice a week and it was like an hour.
Yeah.
And then we had a game on Friday and or Saturday nights or whatever. So my thing was I just thought it was easier. And so I think really I just needed a break.
For sure.
And it's funny because now at my part-time job, I teach competitive gymnastics, and I always tell the parents, they'll ask me after practice, how's my daughter doing? Like, what does she need to work on? She looks like she's not very focused. I tell them, I say, if she asks for a break, give her a break.
Yeah.
If this is, she's really good. She's going to come back. She's going to miss it. And these kids are so young. I think my parents weren't. My dad was athletic, but my mom really wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so when my parents saw that I was really good at this sport, they were just like, push. Do it. Like, you can't take a break.
Yeah. So, I mean, you see these gymnasts, I mean, like 11, 12, 13, and they're like, it seems like they're at the peak. Like where do you feel like your gymnastics arc, like when were you at the top?
I would probably say my peak was like 12 to 16.
Yeah.
That was when, at that age, so in gymnastics, levels 1, it's changed now since I was doing gymnastics, but it used to be levels 1 through 6 were compulsory.
Okay.
And then levels 7 through 10 were optional. And so in optional, you get to pick your own music, choreograph your own routine, pick your own skills to compete. And so when I was in optional, I felt like that was when I was thriving the most because I could like...
Play to your strengths a little bit and like have more fun with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, for example, like when you're a compulsory, you have to compete what's in the book.
Right.
And so
do these skills.
They have a routine, a 2.5 minute routine that you compete that has to be what's in the book.
Right.
And then when you're an optional, you get to you make your own 2.5
Yeah.
minute routine.
Right.
And so, for example, I wasn't a twister. Like, twisting was never my thing.
Really?
So, like, flipping and twisting, I get lost in the air. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know where I am. But, like, I was a flipper. Double backs, double
Right.
fronts.
Wow.
I was double flipping off of bars, floor. Vault was, I mean, you don't double flip off a vault. But, and then, yeah, so, but I was never a twister. So, when I became an optional, I was a flipper.
Yeah, you just focused on your strengths,
Yeah,
and then you
exactly.
could ride that.
Yeah, and so I think when I was able to focus on my strengths, that's when I was able to be more successful.
Yeah.
Because I knew I was only competing what I knew I could do. So
Right. So you were sort of at your gymnastics peak from 12 to 16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does it work? Were you competing like club? Was it like a high school thing?
We didn't have it's funny, we didn't have high school gymnastics at the school I went to. And my dad tried to talk to the athletic director, and they didn't want to do it because of liability insurance. And so, but I think high school gymnastics is a lot more downplayed than club gymnastics.
Yeah.
So I did do club gymnastics, but it's not, in college you hear club lacrosse.
Oh, yeah.
It's not as good as like the actual college
but
lacrosse.
club gymnastics is legit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
club.
same with swimming. I mean, like age group swimming
Yeah.
is like the club component of swimming is so much more legit than the high school component.
Exactly.
And anyone who performs well in high school sports
'Cause they
and
do
swimming,
club.
it's because they live in the club.
Yeah.
And that's the
Exactly.
way that we would train growing up. Is we would have, there was like the I don't know, I guess the North Side School District. All of the schools would kind of practice and swim in the same pool, but that was the same place where the club team practiced. So like all of my friends growing up were just the people that I would swim with, and we all went to the same high school districts. And so yeah, you'd have like a dual meet against a competitor, but it's really just your buddies that you practice with all day.
Yeah,
And it's the people who perform the people who perform best in their high school competitions are the people who are training 4 hours a day in the club.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy though, because I feel like club gymnastics now, I feel like it's just changed so much. It's not as hardcore as when I was
Really?
doing. Yeah. Some of them, there are a handful of gyms that you find that still are, but I mean, the part-time gym that I coach at, like I said, they're only having their optionals work out 2-3 times a week for like 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that's good? Like, I mean, do you think it's like, would you rather be driven and pushed and sort of become excellent and maybe like get burnt out? Or would you rather develop a more like long-term relationship with the sport?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of hard with gymnastics because long-term, that's kind of like non-existent in gymnastics. It's like 16 to 18. Like if you're not in college or in competing in the Olympics, like you're done. Like that's,
Why does it end so early? Is it just like it's so demanding on your body and you just...
I don't really know. I think people just kind of, after high school, there's no other place to really compete besides college. After college, there's nowhere to compete except Olympics.
Yeah.
So I think it just kind of stops.
And there's not like a ton of money in it, I would imagine.
But it's funny. I used to go to this open gym in Manassas. And I used to just go once a week, Thursday nights from 8 to 9. I would drive all the way there. And this guy was like, you should join our adult league. I was like, you guys have an adult team?
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, you pay the membership fee, and we have a couple meets every other month. And I was like, I told my parents about it, and they were like, you should do it. And it's funny because as an adult now, I'm just like, man, I could really get hurt. Like, I don't really know. Like, there are so many skills that I still can hold on to. Like, I can still do a kip. I can still do cast handstand. I could still tumble. But I'm like, if I were to really train a routine, I'd probably really get hurt. Like,
because there's a lot of skills that you're just like that you were able to do when you were younger because you were practicing every day, and now you're just a little.
But I do think, as active as I am now, I think if I were to train, I'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
I think it's just the adult in me that's like Jazmyne, be safe.
Yeah.
Like, that's not safe.
The prefrontal cortex is developed.
Exactly. That's funny because I went to a trampoline park and I was doing like double flips into the pit,
awesome.
and everyone was like, whoa. And I was like, yeah, I used to be a gymnast. And I'm like, I wouldn't do this unless I was going into a pit.
Yeah.
Like,
trampoline parks are fun.
yeah, they are really fun, but
They're exhausting.
And they're really exhausting. But at the same time, the whole time I'm at a trampoline park, I'm just like, I could sprain my ankle. I could hyperextend my knee. I could give myself whiplash. Like, I'm just thinking of all the ways
different ways that you can hurt.
Yeah. More so the reason why I only do things that I know I can do.
Yeah.
You know? So
what was your best event?
beam.
Really?
Yeah, I was
Beam.
beam state champ 4 years in a row.
What?
Yeah, that's it's funny. I try to be really modest about gymnastics, but beam is something that I love to brag about.
Really?
Yeah.
So how does that work? It was like a club state championship?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was all through USAG.
Okay.
So you get USAG certified.
Yeah.
And you have that gym that competes, and they have all these club teams that compete, and so you have on the Eastern Shore it's considered Region 7.
Yeah.
And so all the states like Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Carolina, like all those states are really close. All those teams are in the same region, and so you have during the season you have club gymnastics, and then you go to states, and then you go to regionals, and then you go to nationals.
Yeah, super similar to the swimming arc.
Yeah, seems like it. Yeah,
that's awesome.
And so the club gymnastics. I remember I used to go to competitions, and I would walk in, and people would look at me, and they'd be like, "Oh, she's here.
I'm gonna lose the beam."
She's here." Yeah.
So the beam was your best. Mm-hmm. So what years did you win? You said four years in a row.
Oh, geez.
So this would have been like 12 through 16.
No, it was kind of like, no, it was like 08 through. No, it might have been like 07.
Cool.
Through.
And so, like when you won state, you went on to regionals.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome.
So I was on the regional team.
Oh, super cool.
Yep, all those years in a row, and then I had one really bad regional meet. It was awful.
Yeah.
And I forgot my floor routine, and it was
like you just blanked on it.
Yeah, it was awful, and that never happened to me in all the years that I was doing gymnastics. But my coach told me to switch one of my tumbling passes.
Oh.
And I was facing a different way than when I warmed up. And so I just completely blanked out.
Yeah, it's like one little thing switched and then you just lost it.
And literally I went from facing you to facing the other way, and I just forgot my whole routine.
Wow.
And I think that was like one of my last meets. I was like 16, and I felt like an idiot.
Yeah.
I was just like,
tough.
I was like, okay, because there are certain skills that you get scored on in your routine. And I was like, as long as I do those skills, even if it doesn't go with the music, whatever.
Right.
Like, and I threw a tumbling pass. I did like some kind of jump combo and a turn just so I would get the points for it. But like, it didn't go with the music at all. And I walked off the floor, and my coach was like,
what happened?
whoa, what is that? I was like, I did laugh about it though, because I was like, I don't even know. I don't know. It was weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
So beam was the best. Did you have a worst, or was it just beam was like all the others were like pretty good, but beam was your standout?
Pretty, like if I were to rank it, I would go beam, floor, vault, bars. And I wasn't awful at bars.
Yeah.
I just wasn't as consistent.
Yeah.
As all the other events. And so I mean, same thing with bars, like I would have awful warm-ups. And then I would have awful, like when I competed, it was bad.
Yeah.
But beam, sometimes I wouldn't even warm up beam.
Really?
Yeah. I would probably throw, so they call it a series, which is like when you do 2 flips in a row with connection. And so I would probably throw my series and do a turn, and then I would sit on the edge and I would wait for everybody else to warm up.
Yeah.
And everyone would be like, she's not warming up. They would talk about me.
Yeah.
And then I would go compete and I would be fine.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. It was awesome.
That's cool. And you miss it.
I do, a lot, actually. It's funny because when I'm coaching all the time, I do handstands, and I was always a visual learner. So if I can do something, if I'm teaching it, I'll show it. Yeah. Always.
For sure.
It's funny. I have a lot of girls that I used to do gymnastics with, and they can't do some of the skills. And I'm like, are you even a real gymnast if you can't still do a handstand? Like, are you even a real gymnast if you still can't do a flip? Like, I always feel like you're not a real gymnast if you still can't do those things.
Yeah.
sometimes. I don't know. That's just my theory.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting.
Yeah, but I ended up cheering in college, which was fun. It was really fun. I went to Old Dominion and I cheered all 4 years, and that was a different experience.
Was that like competitive cheer, or was it just I don't know the different levels of cheer, but you see the stuff on ESPN.
Yeah, so
that stuff's crazy. That's legit.
Yeah, that's like so legit. So when I was in college, we weren't competing. We were just doing sideline. So we cheered football, basketball, we cheered soccer, we went to swim. We went to a lot of the sports teams that they had on campus. And then the last year that I cheered, my senior year, they were like, we should compete. And so I think the past few years they've been competing in the UCA competitions.
Yeah.
So like against the other schools that you see on ESPN and stuff.
Yeah. Wow.
So, but all-star cheerleading is a whole nother world. I don't think I would have been able to do that.
No.
Yeah, no. Lots of twisting. I'm not a twister.
Oh, that's right. You're not a twister.
Yeah.
You could have learned twisting.
Probably. But I mean, in the small time that I did cheer, I got hurt more times than I did when I was doing gymnastics.
Really? Why do you think that is?
I think it's just because you're trusting other people to throw you in the sky. Like, it's just not you. And so...
There's, like, more variables.
Yeah, a lot more. A lot. Yeah. It's not just fall on your face or land short and break your ankle. Like, no, it's this person doesn't catch you.
Yeah.
And you hit them, and then you hit the floor.
Yeah, like a really, like a super team sport.
Yeah. I had a couple concussions in college from being dropped. And
CTE, ankle. Watch out.
Right? For cheer.
Sprained ankle, and so, wow, like, you would just fall and, like, hit your head frequently?
Most times the girls, when they would catch, they'd break the fall. But it was still a pretty bad fall.
Yeah.
But there was this one time I was partner stunting with this guy on the team. His name was Nick. And so I'm sure you see in college stunting, they call it co-ed stunting when it's a guy and a girl.
Yeah, where they like push them up. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Nick threw me up and caught me here with 2 feet and 2 hands. And then he was supposed to push up and put 2 feet in one of his hands.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know what happened. My feet just slipped right forward. And I
just lost the balance.
Yeah, I just fell literally like a tree this way. Ooh. And he didn't even, I don't know. He didn't even try to catch me. It was completely accidental.
Of course, yeah. It wasn't being malicious, but wow.
I fell flat on my back.
Oh,
and
no. And you're falling from like 6-8 feet. Like you're falling from high.
Yeah. And I landed flat on my back and I hit my head and I had a really bad concussion. I had like tunnel vision for like a whole day. It was awful. Yeah. That was crazy. That was real crazy. I broke a couple ribs from like landing on the side. Jeez. When girls catch, so they're supposed to catch here. And I just, over their arms, I just fell over.
That's crazy. I didn't realize it was such a intense sport. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think like pyramids are the scariest because it's like all these group of people
and then
together.
one thing goes wrong and you all
Everyone
come crashing
falls.
down.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Were you the top of the pyramid?
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be.
I have some really cool pictures of that too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I remember when I first started cheering, I was like, I wanted to be a base because I knew I was strong. They were like, no, you're going in the sky. Like, you're smaller than everybody else. Like, you can hold your weight. You're strong, so you can be tight, you know. Yeah. I wanted to be a base for a really long time. They were like, not happening.
Yeah.
There's only 4'something person on the team and wanted to be a base.
So do you think gymnastics, this is like the burning question. Do you think gymnastics makes people short, or are short people good at gymnastics? You know what I'm saying?
I don't know which one it is. I don't know, because I feel like I was growing when I was a kid, and then I just stopped growing.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's like a stunned growth thing.
Yeah.
Or if, short people are just drawn.
Yeah, well, like when you were competing in gymnastics, were there like girls that you were competing with, and then they just sort of like got too tall, and then they started to suck, and then they just quit the sport?
See, and that's the other thing. You see tall gymnasts, and most of them aren't very good. I think it's just more leg and more arm and more body that they have to deal with, and I think it's just easier for shorter people. Yeah, most of the girls when I was competing, if they were tall, I was like, they're not very good.
Yeah.
But most tall gymnasts are twisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Flippers.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's like a jump thing or I don't know. It's just easier to twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How good is Simone Biles?
Jeez, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, because like you watch the Olympics and you see, and she's like, and everyone's like, she is so much better than everybody else.
Yeah, and so her thing is she is very, very consistent.
Okay.
And she's a lot tighter than. So, like, for example, if you were to compare, this is just my personal opinion. If you were to compare Gabby Douglas and Simone Biles, Simone is more like powerful. She is a powerhouse.
She looks like if you put them side by side, it's like, wow,
yeah, and
she's definitely stronger.
Yeah, for sure. And Gabby Douglas is only like 2-3 inches taller than her.
Really?
She's still like 5 foot.
Yeah.
And Simone is like 4'8", 4'9".
Right.
Yeah, and so she's more powerful, and so most gymnasts they have this thing where you hit through a handstand. Like every skill that you do, you get points for going
like on the
through
bar?
a handstand, for example. Yeah. Yes, on the bar. And so like Gabby Douglas, I felt like she would grace through a handstand. But Simone, she'll go through a handstand and hit it.
She'll like whip to the handstand.
Yeah, whip to the handstand, hold the handstand, and then go again into something.
Yeah.
And so I just think her lines are more like powerful. They're just there. Like the beginning and the end of every skill is very apparent. And so like Gabby Douglas, I felt like she was very graceful.
Right.
And so I think that's the difference between the two. But Simone is amazing. I was on her Instagram the other day. She's training.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Is she gonna?
She had her first day back in the gym a couple days ago. Or a couple weeks ago.
Did she retire? Did she get injured? What?
I don't think. No, most girls after the Olympics they take a little break.
Yeah.
They might be in the gym, but just not as consistent.
Right. Definitely.
But then they have the start of their season. They'll start training again.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if she's training for college or if she's going to do the Olympics again. I think she said she's going to, but I don't know.
How old is she now? Do you know?
I don't really know.
Way past her prime.
Nah.
She's probably like 19. Like
19 past the prime.
Senior gymnastics.
I know. But the one thing that makes me happy is when these girls go to the Olympics and then they go to college.
Yeah.
And they do college gymnastics. Even though college gymnastics is a breeze for them.
Yeah.
A breeze.
Well, yeah. But it's still fun to like be able to continue to compete.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. So so you cheered through college. What'd you study in college?
Elementary education.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, I knew I wanted to work with kids. But I kind of knew that I wasn't going to teach in a classroom. I don't know, you just
weren't feeling the classroom.
Me. Yeah, and I knew I wanted to do something active with kids, and although I don't want to be a gymnastics coach forever.
Yeah, definitely.
I know I want to do something active with kids.
Yeah.
Whether, I like growing the program at Old City. I think that is the foundation of Old City Gymnastics is exactly where I want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm most passionate and where
So tell me a little more. So I mean the gymnastics program, who's it for? What do you like what's it all about?
Yeah, so the program is fundamental gymnastics for kids ages 2 to 12. And so we're not competitive. We're not teaching the kids back handsprings and back flips and, a bunch of crazy skills. We are solely teaching the fundamentals of gymnastics. Forward rolls, backward rolls, flexibility, handstands, cartwheels. And the cool thing about our program is that we're cycling through everything that we do, and we're cycling through, but in a way that it's consistent for the kids to be able to grasp it under no pressure. And so we'll do cartwheels, and we'll tell the kids, hey, we're working on cartwheels for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But we're doing so many other things as well that they don't even realize that we just spent 4 weeks working on a cartwheel.
Right. And then the pressureless scenario is that if they didn't totally nail a cartwheel, like whatever, you'll catch the cartwheel in the next cycle.
Exactly.
And then you can just work on improving your skills. So it's kind of like you're building an athletic foundation.
Exactly. And the other thing is I've been introducing a lot of things that are so basic, like jumping jacks or hula hooping, jumping off of one foot. There's all of these things that you don't really think about learning.
Right.
But, we've snuck these into our programming, and the kids need it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Especially with I think the internet just changed the way kids grow up, Like they're inside a lot more. I mean, if you look at the childhood obesity rates and all these things, it's nuts.
Yeah.
The kids need that athletic outlet that maybe they're not getting in their normal play life.
Yeah. And I think and the one thing that I find most what's the word? That makes me feel best is when we get these kids who don't think that they're strong.
Yeah.
Or, they don't know how to use their muscles. You know? We just recently had the kids start climbing the rope.
That's cool.
And all the kids, I brought out the rope, and I'm like, hey, we're going to climb the rope today. And they're like, I can't do that. And, they get on the rope, and I show them what to do with their hands, where to put their feet, and I tell them, pull with your muscles. And I think 60% of our kids can climb to the top of our rope.
What? Mm-hmm. And that's a tall rope.
Yeah.
That's 14 feet.
Yeah, and they've got it. And every week they come, can we climb the rope, Coach Jazmyne? Can we climb the rope? Do you guys want to play a game, or do you want to climb the rope? We want to climb the rope, so. That's
cool.
Yeah. And I think, lately we've been working, helping the kids with, push-ups and jumping jacks and froggy jumps and just all of these things that require muscle, and coordination that you would assume that these kids could do, but they just can't.
Yeah, well, I think one of the most beautiful things about sports is that it in a time childhood is learning about yourself and what you're capable of doing and maybe making mistakes, and it's you're learning about the world, you're learning about yourself, and you're growing into a little human. And one of the most beautiful things about sports is it gives you so many different areas to explore what you're capable of. You learn discipline, you learn how to push yourself past your mental limitations. It teaches you what your body can do, and it's incredible.
It is. And it's one of the things that make me most excited to be a parent way in the future, because I don't want to have kids for 15 years. But, I think that's, teaching kids how to be physically strong and mentally strong is just, I think that's so fun.
Yeah.
So fun.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's super important because, I don't think everybody needs to go through the strictest gymnastics, 5-hour practices, 5 days a week. And, I grew up very similar in the way that, my swimming background, very similar to your gymnastics background, where you're put in one of these elite programs and you just do it. 4 hour practices, well, 2-hour practices, 2 times. My entire high school was training at extremely high levels, and I'm sure you're the same way.
Yep.
And I don't think you need that. That's there if you want that, and that's there if you're passionate about it and you really want to learn. But you need something, you need a physical outlet, especially as a kid. You need a physical outlet because there's this book. It's called Spark. It talks about just the body-brain connection and how essentially just using your body maybe before school or after school, it just helps mature the brain and helps it gives the brain a lot of the.
I gotta read that. That sounds awesome.
It's a really, really good book.
Yeah.
Part of the book there was a class. They had a 0-hour class. So before school there was a physical ed class that students could do.
Yeah.
And then I forget the details of it, but it was either the students who did it or the school districts that implemented this 0-hour. They outperformed in the classroom everybody. They just performed so much better in school because they were using their bodies before school and exercising. It's nuts. I think we're only scratching the surface of what the potential is for body, brain, and
for sure. The one thing I'm still trying to make a big breakthrough is flexibility with these kids. It's really funny because I feel like when I was 5, I could spin my plant my feet and turn my back 3 times, or just do all these really freaky flexible things, and I feel like kids these days just aren't flexible.
Yeah, I think they sit a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that's really,
Yeah.
I mean, even you see it in adults, like in the gym, we see it all the time. It's, if you're sitting 8 hours a day and then you come home and you watch, you're sitting on your couch for
Yeah.
another 4 or 5 hours a day and then you're sleeping,
Yeah.
like your body turns into this, like your body just turns into seated.
Yeah.
And that's what, like, you see a lot of in offices and stuff, and you see a lot of people being more conscious of it and standing desks and having walking meetings and all these things. And there's there's a push to incorporate that in schools too, and I think that's super important.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
But like, what do you do? Like, what do you see? Do you like? How flexible are these kids? Like, is like touching toes an option?
It's like touching shins for these kids.
Yeah.
And
at what age? Like, because you look at a baby, like you look at a toddler, and their squat looks amazing.
Yeah.
Like they're super flexible, obviously. Like they're their body's just starting to
our
come together.
3-year-olds are probably the most flexible out of all the kids that we have. We have this stretch where the kids sit in a straddle. We call it pancake.
Yeah.
Kids sit in a straddle and they put their belly on the floor.
Right.
And I think almost all of our 3-year-olds can do that.
So 3's good, and then what age does it
4,
start?
I think 4. It starts
4 to 5. It
right
starts
at
to
4. The kids, we do a pike with our legs together, and the kids are reaching for their toes, and they're saying that their bones are breaking. Or that's what they say.
Yeah.
My bones are breaking. That hurts. And I'm just like, you can't even touch your toes.
Yeah.
And so I think for us, stretching, we spend about 10 to 15 minutes stretching with the kids in our classes, trying to create a routine. And we try to encourage the kids to stretch at home and tell them, like, oh, your pike looks so much better this week. Are you stretching at home?
Yeah.
And, the answer, when we start asking the kids that question, a lot of our answers have changed from
That's
no
good.
to yes.
And you see a difference when they come back.
Yeah. And so the kids are more interested in being more flexible and being able to do things that, we acknowledge to them that they can't do in a positive way, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
But, and then, we tell them, you can do this if you practice at home.
Yeah.
And then they come back the next week or the week after, and they're like, look, Miss Jazmyne, I can smell my knees, because they can touch their toes and put their head down and smell their knees because they're so folded in half.
That's awesome.
So...
And I think when you catch it early, like when you're 4, you're 5, you're 6, like you're still growing. Like they're you're so pliable.
Yeah, I'm like, why are your hamstrings tight? My hamstrings are tight. Like
you have an excuse.
Yeah. I worked out yesterday, or whatever the case may be. Or
like kids' bodies can't get hurt.
Yeah, I'm just like, what? But
yeah.
Yeah, but the kids that we have in our program are phenomenal, and we get so many kids who are like, this is the best gymnastics class I've ever come to.
That's awesome.
Most of our older kids say that. And, it's good reassurance for me because, when I was putting together the programming, I was like, I don't know how this is going to be.
Yeah, well, I think it's a beautiful combination of teaching real skills, like teaching real gymnastics.
Yeah.
And like removing a lot of the stress that comes from real gymnastics. Like if you're training gymnastics as a sport and you're going and competing, you're showing up as an 8-year-old who maybe this is like your first few weeks of doing gymnastics. You'd show up and you'd be like, what?
Yeah.
These kids are... And then you'd be demoralized, and you'd lose a lot of that confidence.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily about judging yourself on the global gymnastics scale. It's about improving yourself and learning new skills. And I think that's the beautiful thing about the program is you really you show kids that they can do more than they thought they could do, and then they leave really jazzed about it.
Yeah.
It's like, yesterday I couldn't climb a rope. Today I can climb a rope.
Yeah, I got a really awesome email from a parent the other day, and she was saying that she had to explain to her daughter what a sore muscle was, and that was because she had climbed 2/3 of the way to the top of the rope.
That's awesome.
And the next day, she was telling her mom that she was super sore, and she's like, "We had to explain to her what a sore muscle was."
That's cool.
So I think it's awesome that I'm able to stick with gymnastics, but it makes me feel better seeing these kids feel better about themselves in what we do in our program.
Yeah.
So, this gymnastics program with Old City is awesome.
That's cool. So do you see like changes in the kids' demeanor confidence as they acquire like more and more skills, or as they're in the program for longer and longer? Like, do you see a change in their like who they are?
Oh yeah, for sure. They're more confident.
Yeah.
They're more determined, and they're all super eager to learn. And so
That's awesome.
I think it's one of those things. You learn something and you see you can do it, and you want to see what else you can do.
Yeah.
And so the kids get a certain skill, and it could be something so simple. We worked on chin hangs last week, and the kids had a really hard time with it. And so during playtime this week, the kids are doing chin hangs.
That's awesome.
And they love it.
Yeah.
And so they're just like, and most times when we try to introduce something that requires the kids to use muscle, we tell them, like, today you're going to learn how strong you are. And today you're going to learn how to use your muscles and, to do certain things. And so when we explain that factor to the kids and they realize, like, whoa, this is hard.
Yeah.
And they're eager to figure it out and learn it.
Yeah.
That's that. And each week they come, they're saying, we had some kids say, "Are we doing anything that makes us use our abs today? Are we using our quads today?"
Yeah.
That's our older kids, but our like 5 to 7, 8 to 10-year-old classes, and they're all super eager.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, for sure, the kids are changing. We have some kids who have been with us since we started the program in March.
Right.
And all of those kids are like continuously eager.
Wow.
So they haven't died out and lost interest in the program.
Yeah.
Which was something that I was really concerned about, but they're not. And so that's reassuring.
Because you do the 4, like, what's the basic structure of the program? You do the 4 big floor, bar.
So each apparatus,
beam.
So we have vault, bars, beam, floor.
Yeah.
And so we focus on each one for a month.
Yep.
And each week we're learning a different skill.
Yeah.
That builds up to something hard, quote unquote hard. So, for example, if we were doing floor, maybe the first week we'll do forward rolls. And then the next week we'll do backward rolls. And then the next week we'll do intro to handstands. And then the last week we'll do cartwheels. But all of those skills are put in an obstacle course that have other stations that build up to that skill or the skill that we're doing in the next week.
Yeah.
So we're saying we're not doing cartwheels till week 3, but for the past 2 weeks the kids have been doing cartwheel drills.
Right.
So when we actually do a cartwheel, it all clicks.
Yeah.
It all comes together
It's
for the
sort
most
of
part.
building it up. And so what you see is kids who've been through the cycle 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
Their cartwheel goes from, like a decent cartwheel to like a really good cartwheel.
Yep. So starting with their arms above their ears in a lunge and, making sure they're putting, I always tell people when you do a cartwheel, think hand, hand, foot, foot. And so we get kids that go hand, foot, or hand, feet, because they're kind of like doing this like jump over thing. They don't understand the concept that it's all supposed to happen at 4 points.
Cartwheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so it goes from being this one mushed skill where they're just kind of like jumping from one side to the other to an actual stretched out cartwheel.
Virtuosity. Yeah. That's what they talk about that in the CrossFit. So Greg Glassman, the founder of CrossFit, he like has a gymnastics background, and he talks about the virtuosity of movement and how you can learn how to do an air squat like pretty quickly. Like most people, like 5 minutes, they're doing a pretty good air squat.
Yeah.
But you can just tell the difference between someone who's been air squatting for years and someone who just learned it. It's that piece, it's that virtuosity where it's just like they're not hinging their hips, bending their knees, squatting down below parallel. Like that's been combined into one movement.
Yep.
Like that movement is a squat.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we see that a lot with a lot of the skills that we're doing. And although they're really basic, this week we've been working on skin the cats.
Yeah.
And the big fear with these kids is they're afraid to go upside down.
Yeah.
And so we're helping the kids get used to going upside down, doing it with a spot and realizing that, you can see the floor the whole time.
Right.
If you ever want to come down, just look at the floor, put your feet there.
Yeah.
And so, it's just teaching all these outlets for the kids to realize, how to do it, what to do if it doesn't go right, it's all a process, but the kids they're loving it. So.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. It's really cool.
And then how are you like what's like the arc of Jazmyne's life? Like what's like you went from competing at gymnastics at a high level, and then doing the cheer thing, and then doing this elementary education thing at college, and now you're running a kids gymnastics program. What do you like?
It's awesome. It's my life is pretty it's pretty boring. I mean, I go to the gym, I go to work, and so I probably spend like a lot of time with my cats at home, but that's pretty much it. You know, I don't do too much outside of.
I mean, I don't think it sounds boring at all. I mean, you were just talking about transforming the athleticism and the confidence of, kids across Capitol Hill.
I keep telling myself I want to train for something. I just haven't figured out what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do like something with strength or like a race or.
Yeah, you just want to sort of apply yourself like you did with gymnastics.
Yeah, I want to find something to train for.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do like a bodybuilding competition.
Yeah.
Or something with strength, because I feel like for my size I'm pretty strong.
Yeah.
And so I just try to stay really consistent in the gym.
Yeah.
That way, whenever I'm ready for that, I'm not starting from nothing.
Right.
So
what does it what does it look like when you work out? What do you like? Do you do gymnastics type stuff, or is it?
I try
more
not
just
to, because I don't want to be that person who's being really extra in the gym.
Yeah. So you just want to kind of fit in and do like normal gym things. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do get some looks, because I love lifting heavy.
Yeah.
And so like that's definitely my thing, and I learned that in college. I actually did CrossFit for like 2 years in college.
Wow.
And I absolutely loved it. And at that time I was training twice a day. I was like just like 8 to 10% body fat because I was so lean.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just lifting and doing a lot of cardio because I learned I gain muscle really fast.
Yeah.
And so if I don't do cardio, I'll probably put on like 5 pounds of muscle in a week.
Wow.
It's weird.
That's crazy.
It's so weird. And it's funny, I took a week off of the gym last week, and I came back this week and I just feel stronger. Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with gymnastics.
I think you sort of develop this athletic frame.
Yeah.
Like
that just doesn't go away.
And I mean, it's really interesting. I don't know the science behind it, but I feel like I grew up swimming my whole life. I could, I'm definitely very much out of swimming shape, but if I were to focus for a few months.
Yeah. I get it all the time, especially when I'm leaving the gym. Like if I leave the gym and I go straight to the grocery store, people always ask me like, "Are you a gymnast?" And I'm like, "I used to be, not anymore." I mean, but they're like, "Wow, like how long's it been?" When I tell them, they're completely surprised.
Yeah.
Because it's been so long, but I'm just like, my stature, I'm telling you, has been the same since gymnastics.
Yeah.
Like there was a period of time when I wasn't working out at all, and I like put on a little weight, but I was still like gymnastics frame.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like you put weight into that frame that's there. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I learned a lot about my body during that time, and so now I just try to I'm trying to just maintain right now. I don't have any.
You know what you need to train for? You need to train, because you're really good at handstands and like hand balancing.
Yeah.
You need to become one of those Cirque du Soleil performers that stacks the chairs and then balances on the top of the chairs.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah,
I actually used to want to be in the circus when I was younger.
Yeah?
Yeah, and my dad thought it was so silly.
What did you want to do in the circus?
Something with flexibility or handstands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm telling you, since I was like 10,
wow.
I was like, my dad's like, "What do you want to be when you get older?" I was like, "I'm going to be in the circus."
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to do handstands, and I'm going to bend in half and drink water holding a cup with my feet over my head.
That's a different level. Yeah. I think that's that stuff is crazy.
Yeah, and I follow all these people on Instagram, and it's crazy to think that things like that are possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think at some point, flexibility like that, you almost got to be born.
Yeah.
I don't think that's created.
Yeah, when I was doing gymnastics, I had really good hip flexibility. I can still do splits, and I'm super flexible in my hips, but my back flexibility it's always been awful.
Really?
Awful. Yeah. Bridges, anything that required an arch of my back.
Just tough.
Yeah. And now, as an adult, it's even worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, that's super cool.
Yeah. Lots of gymnastics.
I know. No, this is awesome. This has been fantastic. A chance to sort of talk to you and have you talk about the program and your life. And
I didn't think I was going to be that interesting, but I feel like I have a lot of things to share. So
yeah, you're super interesting.
Fun. Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, like that's the thing, man. So many people are like, my life is so boring. Man, what somebody else wouldn't give to have, like a fraction of insight from, your experiences.
Sure.
And like I would love to learn about discipline from Jazmyne, or, oh man, Jazmyne, like teach me some handstand stuff, or like I heard you talking about kipping, like it's really cool. And that's sort of one of the goals of what I'm trying to do with these conversations is just like highlight how great people are.
Yeah, which is cool. It's awesome. And that's one thing that I love doing things like this. And so, and it's just like the program that I'm doing, realizing that you are awesome, you know? So I think this was a good thing for me to realize how awesome I am.
Yeah. Sweet, Jazmyne. Well, high five.
All right.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yes, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun.